Happy birthday, Age of Empires! It has been 25 years since the very first AoE was released on this day in October 1997. So it's high time to take a look back on the beginning of the Age franchise during a time when RTS was still a young genre and CRT monitors were still the standard. Welcome to Age of Empires 25, a little nostalgia trip to the beginning of the AoE series. Before I talk further about Age of Empires, we need to take a general look at the gaming landscape of the 90s. The 90s were a time when genres that we all know and love were established. The first-person shooter genre, for example, became popular with id Software and the legendary games such as Wolfenstein 3D, Doom and Quake, and not to forget competitors like 3D Realms with Duke Nukem 3D. Real-time strategy found its origin with Westwood's Dune 2 and mainly consisted of three themes during its early days: battles in the fantasy world such as in Blizzard's Warcraft, or in a future and alternate reality like in Westwood's later big series Command & Conquer. However, RTS wasn't the only strategy genre to become more popular, as with Sid Meier's Civilization, turn-based strategy took off. Its focus was nothing less than human history itself. Along Sid Meier, Bruce Shelley worked on the very first game, which was released in 1991. I'm sure I don't have to explain that Civ is one of the longest running franchises in gaming, with 6 entries in total. It spawned its own memes with Nuclear Gandhi, which found its origin right here in Civ 1, being the best known. Motivated and inspired by his work on Civ 1, Shelley founded Ensemble Studios in 1995, together with Brian Sullivan, as well as the Goodman brothers Tony and Rick. After being announced at E3 1996, the young studio partnered up with Microsoft and released the year after its first game that eventually proved to be one of the most influential games of all time, Age of Empires. H1's intro that you are seeing right now in the background already put the player into the right mood for the game and made clear why it was able to stand out in the real-time genre. Instead of orcs or mammoth tanks like in Warcraft and Command & Conquer, ancient soldiers and their war machines determined the battlefield. It wasn't a fictional scenario, but rather history. Inspired by strategy games of that era, AoE 1 took elements that made those games great and combined them with its own ideas. For example, the way AoE 1's UI was sorted was seen as groundbreaking, with the minimap and the toggleable scoreboard being at the bottom and the resource panel at the top, while its competitors either preferred to place their interface on the left or right side. Another revolutionary thing was unit control, as in AoE 1's competitors, units are either moved just with one mouse button, like in C&C, or had to be moved with a button on the control panel, like in Warcraft. AoE 1 introduced controls with 2 mouse buttons. The left selects a unit, and the right orders them to attack. Presentation-wise, AoE 1's campaigns obviously lacked the coolness factor of C&C's FMV cutscenes.
This is Greg Burdett, the Outlay Stock.
Cut. Excellent. Now, do it again in French and German. I want 300 copies made and sent to every TV station in Europe. We have the satellite for another 10 minutes. Is that camera still running?
As well as voiceovers from Warcraft's campaigns.
Black Cat has assigned you to an outpost in the swamps of sorrow. Your task is simple enough that even the war chief feels that you are capable of it. Construct at least 6 farms so that we may keep our troops well fed and ready to do battle. Only a fool would leave his treasures unguarded, so you must also build a barracks for the defense of these farms.
However, it was able to compensate this just with its setting. From the very first steps with the ascent of Egypt to the glory of Greece, the campaigns covered various topics of the ancient world. The campaigns were introduced and concluded with short video clips. Each scenario included a small piece of text with the historical context. The demo, or trial version as Microsoft called it, featured Reign of the Hittites, a campaign that remained exclusive to this release up until Definitive Edition was released in 2018. The soundtrack was composed by David and Stephen Rippey by using sounds of instruments that were actually used during the period the game is set in. This led to a strong emphasis on woodwinds and drums. The creative output was not inconsiderable, as a whopping 17 tracks have been composed for the base game, excluding the main menu theme as well as win and defeat jingles. As disk space was limited, the team decided to only master 10 of these tracks to CD quality, mainly David's tracks. As a neat feature, a selection of 9 tracks as well as the main menu music plays in MIDI quality when the disc is not inside the CD drive. The success of AoE 1 was quite clear, and gaming magazines all around the world were pleased with the game, so a successor was soon to follow. However, as development took longer than expected, a happy little accident, like Bob Ross would say, happened in 1998 when The Rise of Rome, AoE 1's first and only expansion, was released. Gameplay-wise, it received planned features for AoE 2 that improved the overall flow of the game, by introducing a unit queue as well as being able to expand the population limit for multiplayer games to up to 200. As the name suggests, the expansion covers the Roman Empire and its enemies. The campaigns weren't introduced with videos anymore, however, depending on the outcome of the mission, a small piece of text explained the aftermath of a scenario. Like the base game, Rise of Rome's trial version featured an exclusive campaign that focused on the First Punic War. But it still received positive reviews. Rise of Rome was slightly criticized to be more of the same. Interesting enough, Rise of Rome is also still the go-to version of AoE 1's competitive scene, which is mostly Vietnam based. 20 years later, Microsoft announced a definitive edition of H1 at E3 that was supposed to be released in October 2017, but delayed and eventually scheduled for February 2018. As previously mentioned, DE included Reign of the Hittites as well as First Punic War. The original campaigns now received aftermath text as well, and all campaign texts are now accompanied by a voiceover.
When a herd of gazelles saw your approach, they stampeded you to death, killed by small antelopes. Better luck next time. The small city-state of Babylon is growing under the energetic leadership of its new king, Hammurabi. You have been sent downriver to bring some enclaves of Sumerians and Akkadians into the fold. Use your powers of persuasion when you can, but do not hesitate to resort to war if they prove to be resistant.
Sadly, the original videos are gone because the raw files are lost. The game was heavily reworked, featuring now quality of life features from AoE 2 and 3, such as a global cure or smarter villagers. Its start was rough, because it was released as a Windows 10 exclusive on Microsoft Store, and it was plagued by legacy problems that were eventually fixed. In August 2019, a more polished Steam version was released. What is AoE 1's legacy? Obviously, the game started one of the greatest franchises of all time with 3 sequels and a spin-off. It also has a sister game with Stainless Steel's Empire Earth, that just happens to have the same lead designer, Rick Goodman. If you ever navigated through the game's menu and editor and thought that things look similar, this is no coincidence, as Rick Goodman was directly inspired by his previously work on AoE 1. Cheat units are also part of AoE 1's legacy. From black sports cars equipped with a rocket launcher over to a combat robot and photoman, the game included a variety of units to mess with the enemies. But you could also alternate regular units like the ballista that gave an incredible 1+99 range, or the bowman that made this unit become one with nature. Rise of Rome added even more codes and units, such as a baby with a shotgun on a tricycle or birds that turned into dragons. This tradition of cheat units continued throughout the series, with AoE 2's Cobra car being the most recognizable one. Although AoE 1 is not as popular as its successors, it'll always remain as a game that started one of the most iconic sounds in gaming. the sound of AoE 1's priest when converting. The sound originates from one of Chris Rippey's family videos and has been manipulated and then later used as well for Taunt 30 in Age of Empires 2, as well as one of the biggest tournament series in Age of Empires history, Red Bull Bigelow. Soundtrack-wise, the track Grey Sky became the main theme for the franchise. It's even that iconic, but the recorded main theme for AoE 1's Definitive Edition is based on it, rather than the original themes. What is your favorite AoE 1 memory? Let me know, and thank you for watching.